Rangers Journal.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Rangers Journal tonight. Hopefully tonight we're going to reflect on a big 3 points last night, 2-0 up at Pittodrie. Touch on a little bit about Jim Gillespie. A few of you will want to get into that and hear the thoughts of the guys. And hopefully as well, we're going to look beyond results and the boardroom news and talk something a little bit deeper rather than just results. Something about understanding Rangers and what it means to be a Rangers fan. So thanks very much for joining us tonight. Craig, how are you doing this evening? You well, good? You well, mate? Sorry.
I'm good, mate. Doing really well. Another 3 points, as you say, and we're gonna talk about something, again, as you say, a bit more deeper. So I think it should be a fun one tonight.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully I won't distract myself reading all the comments as well as trying to host a pod at the same time. What about yourself, Andrew? How are you feeling? You good, mate?
I'm doing well. Good to keep the momentum up yesterday. It's been almost perfect since Danny came in. So, yeah, more 3 points the better.
He's been doing well. No denying it at all. Another clean sheet away from home. What were your thoughts on the game? Just quickly covering it, mate.
Good to see Aberdeen fans getting a shower at the end. That was always good to see. But a good, solid performance. Before I came on today, I was listening to the Let's Talk Rangers podcast. So we shout out to them. Kyle on that pod made a really good comment. It was a Sasa Papach of a performance. Everyone 7 out of 10, which I think nails it. No one stood out to me, but no one was bad. All 11 and the subs that came on did a job. Routine win up in Aberdeen. Perfect.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. And pretty fair comment, about the 7 out of 10 all. Sasa Papach as well definitely was a 7 out of 10. What about yourself, Craig, mate? You thought more of a statement win for it, or was it just a simply, a performance, good job, well done, all round, move on? What are your thoughts?
I think it's difficult to call it a statement considering the state that Aberdeen are in just now, with no manager and struggling to win, struggling to score goals. But yeah, no, I think the thing with Danny Rowe now is that you're starting to see performances that are actually better than just scraping wins. It's actually starting to get a bit more comfortable, and you're hoping that over time, that certainly over January, when you get a few players in, I know we've got one in now, you get a few more players in key positions, that it will continue to strengthen going over the second half of the season. But I think it's fair just to call it routine rather than a statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking back myself, mate. It was just generally, I thought it's not a statement win by any stretch of imagination. I thought we played well, to be fair, but like you said, it was more of a job well done. I think the players, showed a lot of character. Cold, wet, windy, a wee crowd up there. But anything in particular that stood out for you, Andrew? Just covering it briefly.
Set piece goals again. Scott Fry might be the signing of the season. I'm not the first one to say that on this podcast, but I think it's a valid point. 3 set-piece goals. I don't know, penalty doesn't really count as a set-piece, but Asgard scored from the set-piece. Fernandez wrongly chalked off, but scored from the set-piece. That's what stood out to me. And long may it continue. We see it, some of the biggest clubs around the world. Arsenal, perfect example. Also, actually, Hearts in our league. They're the only other club with a set-piece coach, and they're the only other club doing the same as us, scoring from so many set-pieces.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. But like you say, hopefully, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but those sort of wins, that's what wins your leagues. When it's something that we have, failed at miserably for the last couple of seasons. So it was not a statement win by any means, not a statement performance, but certainly it's one of those one of those victories you have to ground away at. So it was really good to see. So moving on, Craig, obviously there's been a bit of breaking news today with the new chief executive being announced. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good one. I think if you look at his time at St Mirren, you look at how St Mirren have progressed, not doing so well this season league-wise, but they did win the cup. But you look at St Mirren; they've been a steady top 6 team for the past few years. Whilst he's been in charge there, he's been running things. He's definitely raised the stature of St Mirren from being sort of a yo-yo kind of relegation-threatened club to sort of settled Premiership top half Premiership team. So I think he's a good fit from the outside looking in as someone who can maybe pull Rangers up that one step they need to be that team in Scotland again that are undoubtedly top, are the ones winning, trophies every season. So I think, from just a CV point of view, I think it was a good choice.
It's hard to argue otherwise, mate, to be honest. I think he's got everything that the board's looking for, to be honest, but time will tell. What about yourself, Andrew? Initial reactions to it? Optimistic, cautious, indifferent, mate? What's your thoughts?
I think everything Craig says is correct. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in business or something like that, but he's clearly done a decent job with St Mirren. And from what I've read today, since he was appointed, he's done a good job with charity work in the west of Scotland, which I think is a good reflection of him as a man as well. He's a Rangers man by all accounts. It is interesting that he was previously linked under the old regime, and the fan reaction was pretty negative at that point. It seemed like jobs for the boys at this point, but obviously the Americans coming in, they have no connection to Scotland and Scottish business other than owning Rangers Football Club. If they see him as a good appointment, I trust them.
Yeah, there's definitely a different sort of feeling amongst the fans from his name being mentioned this time. But I'll just stick with you a second. So going on to it, what are you wanting most from him as a CEO? Sort of more transparency, stability, or simply just to focus on results?
A bit of all of that, but I think the biggest thing that I think about when we think about the past two men who've been in that position, the most previous one, Stuart, I think openly hated Rangers fans, didn't respect us at all. And previous was Bisgrove, I think. I don't think he hated us by any means, but I don't think he understood the club either. I think he was a little too focused on just pure commercial side of things, which, I mean, in business is obviously important. But I don't think he really understood the club either, and I don't think he had enough of a connection with the fans. So I'm looking to see a bit more balance on that front. Transparency, like you say, maybe not too much transparency. I think something I've been quite happy with so far since the Americans have come in, we're not hearing rumours all day, every day about transfer ingoings and outgoings. I think that's a good thing. It may be frustrating as fans, but I think that's a good thing that the club is a bit more of a tight ship. So everything that you mentioned is important. Connection with the fans is what has been missing, though. And I think that's something we'll talk a bit more about today.
Yeah, absolutely. That connection, I think, with the fans is huge. And I think the Americans have sort of, they've wised up to that a little bit. That's what we were missing throughout, from top to bottom, really. With Martin Russell, Thelwell, Stewart, the fans were totally disengaged with them. So come on to yourself, Craig, but I'm going to throw something to help you. Jim Gillespie's CV, where he's been at, what he's done, his credentials. Having a quick glance through them, what sticks out to you and what are you hoping for, most importantly? And one thing for me, right, that with this appointment, and I don't know if you agree or not, but if you can comment on it about, do you feel that the club's being more professionally run now? And you think that will still bring that little bit more stability back to the club, even if, and it better, I'm hoping it doesn't, even if results dip?
Potentially, yeah, because I think the thing with St Mirren, he's been there, just looking at that now, he started as a director in 2020. So he's been there just under March 2020. So he's been there just under 6 years. St Mirren have went through a fair few managers in that time. yet have continued to sort of climb up, sort of the not the rankings, but kind of establish themselves more in the Premiership over that time. And they've went through a good number. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many it is, but they've had a fair few managers between 2020 and now. I think that that shows that he has a good idea of when the right time is to get rid of managers, and a good idea on who to bring in, because St Mirren have continued to grow under his leadership, and they've had quite a few personnel change below him. So I think it shows that he's got good decision making skills to keep the club growing once he takes his position. I believe Fraser Thornton, you can say if I'm wrong, but acting CEO Fraser Thornton is still going to be there for a little bit longer. I'm sure I read that in the Rangers statement. So once he is in, I think that even if results dip, if maybe they come to the decision again, touchwood, hopefully not, that Danny Rowe has to go, that they can make a good decision on who to bring in next.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Certainly hope so. Hopefully it won't come to that, and he'll stick around, quite a little while longer, even if the Madrid job is available. Come to yourself, Andrew, mate. What any initial thoughts now you've had a more in-depth look at Jim Gillespie and what he can do? And one of my points on it is, like, do you think fans are going to be a bit more patient, perhaps, especially with off the pitch stuff, if they see a more clear direction from the Americans and hopefully from our new CEO?
I think so, yeah, a bit more patient. I think the most important thing is that we continue seeing results on the pitch, though. If Danny Rule goes on a run of losses, patience could wear thin. But I do think we will see more than we've seen recently. And something on this graphic that stands out to me, relating to what I said before, is that he was integral in installing a fan ownership model at St Mirren. Now, I don't expect anything similar to happen at Rangers, obviously, but it does show that for him, a connection with the St Mirren fans was very important. So I expect it will be the same at Rangers. As I said, we're not going to see fan ownership. Obviously, the Americans have spent however many $1 million investing in the club, but it means we will have a voice and we will have a connection with the C-suite at the club, which I think is essential.
Yeah. And do you think what some of the, just going on to that, just your own opinion, mate, sort of the platforms that we've currently got, with regards to the fans and the fan advisory board, things like that, do you think that's enough, or do you think there should be or could be more that should be done?
I think it probably is enough as long as it's taken seriously. I felt that with the previous regime, as in Thelwell, Stewart, particularly Stewart, it wasn't something taken seriously. It was kind of just symbolic. I think they do need to be listened to. I mean, ultimately, as fans, we are not businessmen, or well, at least most of us aren't. So there are some things we won't understand and won't get right. But in terms of the identity of the club, the culture of the club, the expectations of the club, we need to be listened to. And I do think what's in place at the moment, as I said, as long as it is taken seriously and treated with respect by the likes of Gillespie, I think it probably is enough. I don't see what more there really could be, unless it was fan ownership, which, as I said, is not something that's going to be on the agenda at any point.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think that's going to be a priority for him straight away. I think, for me, transparency with the fans, letting them know what exactly where the priorities are for them and where they want to improve. Obviously, they're going to say on-field results are the priority, but where they see the club moving forward. And I don't want it to just be lip service. I don't want things to just come out in the media, about stadium improvements just to appease them and get them off their back a little bit because it looks like they're doing something. I want to see actual actions, for want of a better word. I know that takes time, and they'll do their due diligence as what they did with the survey, but I don't want to just have lip service anymore from that. So, Craig, before I move on, mate, any points to add into anything we've discussed or further on Jim Gillespie?
Not overly, mate. I just want to underline. It's a good. I think it's a good thing for. I think it's a good thing for Rangers. I think it's something that that we can look forward to. I think there's a lot of things right now behind the scenes to look forward to. I think in the present right now, on the pitch, things look to be improving. Behind the scenes, things look to be improving. I think the Americans have got off to a struggling start, but I think they've realised quite quickly that they had to change the way they were doing things, and they have done. And I think it can only be good for the club.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I'm quietly optimistic, but at the same time, still being guarded to hold them all to account and keep an close eye on what they're doing. And that's the best thing that we can do as fans. But moving on to the real crux of the Rangers Journal topic tonight and tomorrow night, as we're going to part 2, we'll look at what it means to be a Rangers fan. Could be quite an emotive topic for some, especially if Mitch was on. I don't think we'd get a word in edgeways. But Andrew, come to yourself, mate. I don't know when you first started following the Bears. For me, I was 6 years old, supporting my father's team, my family team. That's what I knew. So for yourself, what does being a Rangers supporter actually mean to you? Is it more than just results, or do you just care about the results on the park?
I think the results on the park are the most important thing, right? Our club is built on success. Our tradition is built on success. But it's the same as you said. I'm an Rangers fan because my dad is. I mean, you can tell from my accent, I'm not from Glasgow. My dad is. I'm a Rangers fan because he is. He's a Rangers fan, not because his dad, but because of his granddad. So it's something that runs in families for all of us, I think. And it is a culture of success, as I said. Like, we sing the greatest team in football, the most successful team in football, rather. And I think we've actually lost that. I think there's a team in Egypt who are more successful than us now, Al Ahly, I believe. But this is an essential part of our culture as a club. Being the biggest club in Scotland, being the dominant club in Scotland, winning the trophies in Scotland. And there is this famous quote from Bill Struth about, I'm not going to recite it exactly to you, but our times of trouble will come and we will rise through them, to paraphrase that famous quote. And I think we have gone through that period over the past 13, 14 years now. And I think we are starting to emerge through that as fans. A lot of people were saying online, following the win at Parkhead, there's no way the Celtic fans would go through what we've gone through in the past 14 years. Look how much they've kicked off over just losing 5 games of football. Loyalty, what I just come to think of it, is a big part of being a Rangers fan too, when I think about that. But success is essential. I mean, we are Scotland's premier club, and we need to re-establish that as a solid fact that nobody can disagree with.
Success is essential, but are you saying that if we weren't as successful, you wouldn't be as big a fan?
No, well, I mean, I wouldn't be supporting Rangers anymore after the past 10 years we've been through, right? I was 18 when we went into administration and then relegated or demoted to the 3rd division and came through all of it. I was going to Forfar, Arbroath, Montrose. I mean, I've just named 3 clubs right next to each other, but you get what I mean. To all these wee towns all over Scotland. And to be honest, those were some of the best away days I've been to. Obviously, I don't live in Scotland anymore. I moved away fairly young, so I don't get to games very often. But I'll still watch every week, regardless of whether it's Russell Martin losing to the dross of the SPFL or if it's Danny Rule hammering Celtic 3-1 at Parkhead. It's the same to me. But That being said, my position in terms of watching the club, supporting the club doesn't change, but the people running the club need to be held to account if they're not maintaining the standards that are expected of this club.
Absolutely. So, Craig, a very emotive topic. I can tell Andrew's getting a wee bit emotional there. What about yourself? What does being a Rangers supporter actually mean to yourself? Is it just the same as results? Or are you blue all the way through, mate, like everybody else?
You know, I mean, I went to my first game, I think I was 4 or 5 when I went to my first game. I got a season ticket when I was 7, and I've still got the same ticket in the same seat today. So that's close to 20 years now. I've sat in the same seat at Ibrox. It's really just, it's always come down to a family thing. It's both sides of my family. Again, like Andrew, I'm not Glasgow based, but both sides of my family are all Rangers fans, and it really, there was not much choice in the matter. I went to all the small towns during when we were building ourselves back up the leagues. They were good away days. I've seen Rangers at 2 European finals, which for someone my age is, my age at this modern football era, for a Scottish club to get to 2 European finals when you're in your mid-20s is quite impressive. It's always come down to family. It will never change. I will always go, no matter what. It's just what my life is been built around forever. It's not going to change.
Yeah, completely get that. Completely. I'm very similar, and moving on to my next topic about it, and please, everybody in the comments, jump in with your thoughts, is like, what makes you proud to be a Rangers fan? And I left Glasgow at 18, joined up, moved to England, where I was based, where I've pretty much been since I left. And the thing that I used to always get stick, typical English, the Scottish League's rubbish, blah, 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 and stuff like that. And they would say, well, what team do you support? Oh, Liverpool. Where are you from? Burnley. What do you support Liverpool for? Is your dad a Liverpool fan? No, he's a Burnley fan. Don't you know the rules of football? It's either where you're from or who your dad supports. That's the rules. But for me as well, I'd always say to them, I bet you I could go to Burnley or Liverpool and there'd be a Rangers supporters club. But throughout the UK, even now I'm living overseas, there's always a Rangers supporters club. Every time I go on holiday, right? I don't plan my holidays around it, but I will look up to see if there's a Rangers supporters club. I was living in the States. We had them all over the place. Absolutely, pretty much every city we went to, there was a Rangers supporters club. That, and they're everywhere, and you don't get that. I say that to so many, other fans of different clubs. Like, for example, Norwich. There's a Rangers supporters club in Norwich. I tell you right now, there's not even a Norwich supporters club in Scotland. Right? That's just one of the things that makes me proud. Mainly because I can say to my colleagues, get it right up them, right? Because they're just fake fans. But that our connection is worldwide, and I absolutely love it. It makes me proud of my club, not just who we are, what we stand for, or what we've won, but our fan base genuinely makes me proud. So, for yourself, Andrew, is there anything in particular that either the identity of the club, what we stand for, anything like that? Is there anything that you would, maybe you don't want to say is exactly what you're proud of, but if you were speaking to a fan of, a fan of a club from perhaps a different country, how would you identify Rangers, or how would you promote Rangers to them?
Well, I would echo what you've said to a large extent, but I would expand it a little bit beyond just Rangers fans. So, for example, I live in Poland, and several times I've seen in the gym people wearing Rangers tops, and I've gone and spoke to them thinking maybe they're Scottish, maybe they're Rangers fan. They're just Polish people who see Rangers as a big club and bought the top. Wherever you go in the world, you speak to football fans, they know Rangers, and they respect Rangers. They know we're a massive club. Even in this era of the Premier League and La Liga really dominating, Serie A is very popular here too. We don't have the money of these leagues. We don't have the eyeballs of these leagues, but everybody knows Rangers. Everybody respects Rangers. And this is something to be proud of, I think, as well. It's beyond just, you're right, we do have fans all over the world. But even the people who aren't our fans, people, for example, here in Warsaw, Legia fans, they still know Rangers are a massive club. They still know Rangers put them out of the Europa League not too long ago. And you'll find that wherever you are in Europe especially, but I'm sure South America is the same. I'm sure Asia is the same among people who like football. Wherever you go, people know Rangers. Wherever you go, people will be wearing Rangers tops who aren't Scottish, aren't Rangers fans. We're seen in a similar light to the likes of Manchester United, Real Madrid, not quite as big as these two clubs, obviously, but just as an example, Borussia Dortmund, Juventus. We're in that sort of category where everybody knows who we are and people wear our top and respect the football club, respect our history, respect our performances in Europe, maybe not this season, but as Craig mentioned, 2 finals in, 20 years, maybe slightly less. People respect that, and that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, good answer, mate. Good answer. Marty, welcome. How you doing, mate? You good?
Fine, thank you. Apologies for being late. I was late getting back, so joined on when I got the message.
That's all right, mate. We're still getting fined. Don't worry about it. So we've been talking a lot about, we touched on the Aberdeen game, Jim Gillespie, and been talking about the topic for this week of understanding Rangers and focusing on what it means to be a Rangers fan. Anything in particular? I know it's a big topic, and it can get quite deep, as somebody said in the comments, but let's try not to get too emotive about it. But what about yourself? Is there anything that, what does it mean to be a Rangers supporter to you? And again, is it just results, or does it go beyond results?
Well, it's got to go beyond results. It's the institution. I mean, I was brought up. My mum was a Celtic fan, being Catholic. My dad was Protestant, being Rangers, and I was brought up that way. But for me, it's more than just a club. It's like a family unit. It makes it feel like you're part of something bigger when you're a Rangers fan. You're not just a club supporter. You're part of the club's history. Being a fan, you're there to help the club by paying for season tickets or going to matches, buying the merchandise. You're a contribution to helping the club be successful, and it's always been that way for me. It's having the family link as well. I mean, my family for many generations have been Rangers fans, so it goes along the line. It's something that's not instilled in you, but something you're brought up believing in.
Yeah, and I think many fans would feel the same way. Like I say in the comments, get your own thoughts in on what Rangers means to you. We'll bring them up. We'll probably even add some discussion points as well. Craig, anything further to add on that? And a question for you to think on as well is, do you think, I don't know how old you are, and I'm not going to ask, mate, all right, but do you think supporting Rangers now is harder than perhaps it was 20 years ago? For example, I grew up in the Rangers 9-0 era. That's when I started supporting the club. That's what I remember. I just remember success upon success, domestically, not quite in Europe. And I remember the players that we had, Coyce, Gaza, Laudrup, Gorham. Do we have players at that level now? Nobody could argue that, right? But we see, was it easier being a fan back then than it is now, do you think?
Probably. I mean, I was born just before that era, so I don't remember it. But I can assume that winning the league every year and winning cups every year is a bit more easier than how we've had it past God knows how many years that we've won 3 major honours in since 2012. However many years that is, what that be now? 14. So I can imagine it was easier back then. Doesn't mean that people back then didn't. It doesn't mean that you're more of a fan now just because you're here now and it's not as good. It just means that the club has went through difficulties that we're still trying to work through. And as we say, with everything changing in the background, it looks as if it could be starting to do that now. I think this is more significant than when, for example, Dave King took over. I think there's more potential here with the Americans than there was with Dave King, although I'm not going to sit here and Dave King definitely pulled us from one rung of the ladder to a higher one. But I think there's more potential to really push on here. I think that it's definitely more difficult now, but I think we're on the track to make it easier. When you mentioned Gascoigne, Laudrup, McCoist, we haven't got those players anymore. I don't think it's very, very difficult to ever see players of that level come to Scotland again. I've just seen this comment come up just now. Growing up in the early 80s, I can assume that was very difficult. That must have been very, very difficult. That was probably the poorest era that Rangers have ever had, beyond what we've went through, recently. So I can imagine that being difficult as well. But no, look, things go up and down. Sometimes you're winning a lot, sometimes you're losing a lot. But we seem to be at that stage where we're coming towards the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and as Doug puts it here, at least we've had Tav. I'm sure that will not cause any arguments to anybody watching this, or some people to turn off. I don't know. But Andrew, to yourself, do you think it's? You're a fairly younger lad, but how do you feel about it's been supporting Rangers? Pre-2012 to now, or even coming through 2012. Do you think it's your dad had it easier than you?
Well, that 80s era was what my dad grew up with, so probably not. Maybe a little bit, at least it was in the Premier League. But I think it's an interesting question. I guess I'm around the same age as Craig, maybe slightly older. So I don't remember the 9 in a row era. The earliest teams I remember were sort of Gio, Gattuso, Neil McCann kind of era. But the first teams that I really remember, old enough to have any idea about football, Chris Boyd, Kevin Thompson, Nacho Novo, this kind of era. So at high school, it was very easy to be a Rangers fan. We were the best team in Scotland. We won the league more often than not. It was a bit back and forth for Celtic, but I think we won it more often than not. I think the question is interesting, less in relation to us winning the league in Scotland, but the relative stature of Scottish football compared to English football. I wonder now if the current teenagers are as interested in Scottish football as they are in perhaps English football. I think that's more something that's a question. I don't know. I'm not in Scotland. And I don't have any relations who are sort of 15, 16. But I wonder if with the internet, with the availability of English football to watch, whether many teenagers are just watching English football, are just supporting Chelsea, Man United or something. I don't know. I think that's more of an issue rather than are Rangers winning the league every season or not. I don't know. Maybe the others who are in Scotland or at least in the UK can answer a bit better than that. But I do wonder if that's an issue. I'd like to think it isn't. For me, it certainly isn't. I personally have no interest in English football. I don't watch it at all. I watch Rangers every week and Australian football, Polish football, Spanish football, but Rangers are the team I consistently watch. I wonder if it's the same for teenagers, though. I don't know if they're propagandized into the Premier League. I'm not sure. I'd like to hear what the others think about that.
It's a good question. I think it's probably easier as well for those that living in and around Glasgow or Scotland in particular, that where you're sort of immersed in it, where you see Rangers shirts in the street every day, you see people, you have more opportunities going to Ibrox. So from your point of view, I can completely understand that. So Marty, welcome back to us, mate. I'm still talking about all things Rangers and understanding what it means to be a Rangers fan. And you got to admit, right, over the last 14 years or so, there's been a lot of disappointments. But what is it, right? And in your own words, that keeps us coming back, even after all those disappointments?
It's got to be the love for the club. I mean, it's been quite hard to see Rangers, obviously, with the administration and dropping down the leagues and coming back up. But it's never been the same since, really. But it's still your club. It doesn't matter whether we've gone through hard times or not. You've still got to believe that there's a gold pot at the end of the rainbow, that we're going to start winning more trophies again and be like what we used to be. But it's one of those that it doesn't really matter whether it's good times or bad. Obviously, we're more vocal when it's bad, hence the booing when we had Russell Martin. But if you're going to be one of those that is only a fan when we're winning, then you're not a real fan. You've got to be a real fan through good times and bad. And obviously, these last few years haven't been as good for us as what we have in the past. But we're a long established club with a lot of history, and with that history comes a lot of pride. And to have that pride for the club, you've got to stick by them in the bad times as well. So for me, it's irrelevant whether it's good times or bad. If you're a Rangers fan at heart, you're always going to be a Rangers fan at heart.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know what it is, right? I genuinely don't know what it is, but once you start, it just sucks you in. Right? If I was explaining to somebody else, it's not just the hope that kills you, it's you get immersed in it. And I'm not talking about all the background stuff, just the football, the club, the size of it. It just, intoxicates you, for want of a better word. Yeah. So, but like that, Martin, good answer, mate. Craig, moving on to yourself, any further to add on that at all? You get any further points or comments on what you think? And looking back to this with the same point, if you had to explain what it means to be a Rangers fan to someone that's never supported Rangers or followed Rangers, what would you say to them? And please, guys at home, if you got any thoughts or any comments to answer that, add them into the comments. I'll get them up on the screen.
I think you'd have to just give a run. Like if someone said, what does it mean? If someone asked me, someone foreign from or not from the UK asked me what it means to support Rangers, you just have to sit there and give them a short 5-minute rundown of the club's history and explain, what roped you in on top of, because you said you don't know what it is that really draws you in. I think for myself it was looking at things. It was looking at how Rangers became how they were. My dad has tons of, not that we really watch them now, it's about outdated, but my dad has tons of VHS tapes from old Rangers VHS tapes we used to watch. I used to watch them and I used to see them. He wasn't really showing me them, but he was watching them, and I was sat, as a really young child, just watching them along with him, and it really immersed me into the club as a whole. I think it opened me up to Rangers more than because we'd maybe just started going to watch games, and you're sitting there as a 4 or 5 year old, and you're sitting there naming all the current players, but actually sitting there and watching all the teams of the past. I think it really drew me in anyway. I think if you were to ask someone, if someone was to ask me, what made you support Rangers, I think I'd probably have to just to show them some old clips, some old videos, and just kind of give them an idea of what the club's all about. There is one other point when we were talking about watching English football and things like that. Where I used to coach football in schools, and the number one question I used to get asked all the time from the kids, like when we were finishing up and they were asking, and they were just getting ready to go, they would ask silly questions. Number one question I always got asked was, "Who's your English team?" I said, "I've not got one." Like, but you've got to have an English team. I said, "No, you don't." And these kids are going again Edinburgh based, so the majority of them are going to Easter Road and Tynecastle, and their families just support Hearts or Hibs, and you'll have Rangers fans, you'll have Celtic fans in there as well because it's kind of spread everywhere. But these kids are going to watch Scottish football every week, but they still believe you have to have an English team, which really confuses me. So I would just say, if I was their parents, I would just say, like, this, you have one team. This is your team. You support it no matter what. You don't need to go elsewhere looking for that passion as a fan. By all means, watch games from other countries, especially nowadays when you've got access to so many games from all around the world. By all means, watch different football, but you only have that passion for one club, I think, is what you need to teach kids growing up.
Yeah, I do get that, but I got to admit though, in work, when meeting some of the new guys, you always ask, "Oh yeah, what's your football team?" And usually I'll get an answer like Newcastle or something like that, and I'll wind them up and I'll be like, "So what's your big team?" Just to wind it. Especially Newcastle fans, they hate it, absolutely hate it. All right, Andrew, one of the things about Rangers is we are immersed in tradition. You look back on stuff that's happened this season with regards to wearing the manager wearing a tie. Players always turn up to the match days, training, wearing shirt and tie. A lot of that is I don't want to say gone, but the modern ways have crept into it. How important do you think those traditions are, not only to uphold and instill, but also do you think potentially some traditions might also potentially hold us back from evolving into the modern game?
I think they're essential. I saw there were some people, a minority of Rangers fans, but definitely some, who thought it was no big deal that Russell Martin didn't wear a collar and tie, didn't wear brown brogues. I think it's a massive deal, to be honest. It's like we've all said, it's an institution. To be manager of the football club it's a very important historic role. You need to dress for the part. Traditions are an essential part of our club. Think about the Loving Cup ceremony we've just had. I'm not going to quote what year that comes from, but I believe it's the 19th century, right? It's a real long-standing tradition. These things are essential. Danny Rule understands how important these things are because he made a point of it as soon as he came in. And it's another thing that makes our club unique. I mean, there are other clubs who have traditions like we do, but a lot of clubs don't. Do Livingston have traditions? I mean, it's a bit harsh having a dig at a wee club like Livingston, but you get what I mean. Like, it's not a personal attack at that club, but I think it is something that not every club has. And I think it is an essential part of the culture and identity of our club. And no, I don't see any of these things as holding us back in the modern era. Attitudes towards training, attitudes towards sports science, attitudes towards tactics. These are the things that can hold you back as a club in the modern era. But making sure the manager wears a collar and tie is not going to hold the club back. Making sure we maintain things like the Loving Cup ceremony every new year is not going to hold the club back. That's going to ground us and help us remember who we are as we go through these difficult times. It's what connects us to the previous era, all the way back to the gallant pioneers. So, no, I think they're essential, and I don't think they hold us back at all.
I agree. Some good points here. A good point bringing up about the Loving Cup, something that I hadn't really thought about as I was going through my notes. So hopefully that wasn't too emotive of a topic for you guys or for the viewers watching at home. But I just wanted to quickly wrap up before I get in trouble for going over the allotted time. Craig, you got one word to describe last night's win. What would you go for? There you go. You found it. You struggling, pal?
Just a bit, aye. Routine is what I was going for before I forgot where the mute button was.
Good. Andrew, for yourself, without being too negative though, what's one thing that still sort of not concerns you about the team, but you want to see improved upon with upcoming games that we've got?
It's hard to say based off the Aberdeen game, because I do think they're a very bad team with not a single good player who stands out to me. We'll see when we come up against the likes of Motherwell again, the likes of Hearts again, even the likes of Falkirk again. Some teams you can actually play. We'll see at that point. But what I want to see continuing and maybe even growing is our dominance at set pieces. That's something I want to see continuing. That's for sure.
Sweet. And for yourself, Marty, anything that you have hope for the club under the new CEO, anything in particular?
A bit more consistency and actually having appointments and players brought in that fans can see as progress, because we've not really seen a lot of progress in the last few years. It's been more of a decline, selling players but never replacing them. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency in that, where they're bringing in players in positions that we know we need and that will improve the squad. I don't want to see development players, because that ship sailed. We've tried that and it hasn't worked for us at the start of the season. So I think we need to look at having the right balance, and hopefully having the right staff in will bring that, because it's not been good having this idea of, oh, well, we can be a development club, buy them cheap and sell them on in the future. That's not what us fans want to see. We want to see a progressive club that will challenge for titles and trophies and do well in Europe. And you don't get that when you're buying young players who are thrown in the deep end. I mean, we've got Magoma left back, he's only a young lad, but we've got nobody else. So we need to be realistic, but we also need to be making sure that we hold these appointments to account like we have done with the previous bunch.
Yeah, fully agree, mate. Fully agree. Thanks very much, lads, for joining us. It's been a good night. Just want to say that, for me, Rangers is more than just, a result or boardroom appointments, decisions. It is a proper institution. And I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of reflection tonight, and you've got a little bit more tomorrow night in the journey and what it's like to be a Rangers fan. So thanks everybody for listening. Please do like and subscribe, folks, as Nicky says. So Marty, Andrew, Craig, thanks very much for joining us. You have a good evening, and remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night.